Here on the edge of Carman, Manitoba, the only designer and builder of fighter aircraft in Canada is hard at work on his latest project.
All the wings come into this section right here. I was just getting around to drawing that. They come in right above the boom here. And the struts come from the bottom of the wheel to catch the wing. And the propellers and the engine are mounted in the back so that the whole center line is free, so that when you're shooting, you can shoot center line. In other words, you aim the airplane, and where you aim the airplane is where you hit. So that you don't have to allow for the ordnance being out on the wings and converging.
As the new fighter begins to take shape on the shop floor, Bob Diemert is confident it will do no less than change the course of modern warfare.
If we had 5,000 of these airplanes, the Canadian Armed Forces, as small as they are, could stop an armored drive, a Russian armored drive into Europe, all by themselves. And the cost compared to the F-18 would be, well, it's not in the same ballpark even. You know, we would have saved ourselves about $3.5 billion.
The F-18 Hornet from McDonnell Douglas of St. Louis, Missouri.
And it's capable of carrying a revolver.
Diemert is well aware that to sell his own fighter to the big military spenders, he must outmaneuver some of the most expensive aircraft in the sky. It was at a show like this, however, where the Canadian forces became so excited with the F-18, they bought a handful of the fighters for $5 billion. Diemert had come to the show to promote his cheaper alternative, but by then the spending was clearly out of control.
I know for a fact that if it comes to the crunch and we have to use the airplanes, it's going to be totally useless to us. What are you going to do with 135 airplanes anyway, at the best of times? We're going to put, say, 50 of them in Europe and 50 of them over here in Canada and 35 or so in mothballs for spares. What are you going to do with 50 airplanes in a country as big as Canada?
In spite of losing the contract, Diemert still feels he has an extraordinary edge over the competition. He plans to sell the Defender for 900 times less than the F-18. For the cost of 135 F-18s, the Canadian forces could have bought 150,000 Defenders.
We have to have some means to balance the massive conventional military arm of the Russian military. And that's where the Defender comes in.
To help with the Defender, Diemert brings in an electronics wizard from Bristol Aerospace of Winnipeg. His name is Chris Ball. He happens to own his own tank, which Diemert quickly puts to good use. A small airplane borrowed from a neighbor, they hope to prove the basic theory of the Defender. To hit a very slow Russian tank, you need a very slow airplane. From a supersonic F-18, you couldn't even see a tank, let alone shoot at one.
back and have another go at him.
Diemert lives on the edge of Carman in a house he designed and built himself. During a hot spell, he dug a hole in the living room floor and put in a swimming pool for the kids. The bottom of the pool was too bumpy, so he laid down an underwater carpet, making it perhaps the world's only living room swimming pool with wall-to-wall carpeting.
And you don't figure the British ships could have held them all off?
There's no way. How would you defend yourself against 5,000 defenders?
Well, I know it wasn't 5,000, but look at what happened to Torpedo Squadron 8 back in the Battle of Midway in World War II. They suffered 100% casualty.
Sure, because they went in small numbers and got clobbered because they were going up against a superior force. But if you go in with that many airplanes, they couldn't shoot at you fast enough. They wouldn't have enough rockets or enough guns to train on you. You just simply swamp the defenses.
Speak! Speak! Oh, maybe we'll get those guys out of the pool yet. I'm in here.
Diemert's wife Elaine is a skydiver, a skilled pilot, and a successful businesswoman. His father served on an American battleship in World War I.
I really think we should cement that pool in. Keep them out of there. Okay, you guys, come on for lunch. Hurry up!
He climbed into the cockpit and he made that twin wasp blare. He gunned it down the runway and we watched him disappear.
Hey guys, come on, let's have lunch.
We knew he was a thoroughbred when he pushed her through the gate, for in that Pratt & Whitney were 1,500 pounds of hate.
Diemert first flew into combat during the filming of the movie The Battle of Britain. Desperately short of authentic airplanes, the film's producers showed up one day in Carman. Diemert was at work on an old British Hurricane he'd rescued from a farmer's field. Flying his own airplane over to England, the 28-year-old Diemert soon became one of the movie's top stunt pilots. After his success with the rebuilt Hurricane, Diemert began to travel the world in search of wrecked aircraft. He brought them to Carman as scrap and sold them to collectors in perfect flying condition. Diemert's 25 years of engineering and flying experience is now sharply focused on his greatest passion, the Defender.
Now, I don't advise you to walk up to one of the Canadian Air Force's brand new $20 million F-18s and do this. You're gonna get hung at sunrise.
Diemert has decided the slow-flying Defender will have to be heavily armored like a tank. Of course, an ordinary wing design couldn't possibly lift such a heavy aircraft.
So now we've got an aircraft but no wing to lift it with.
Yeah, that's about the size of it, isn't it? You know, when that canard didn't work, that really threw us for a loop here. You know, we're really backed into a corner now. We've got to come up with something really different if we're going to make it work.
In order to get the heavily armored Defender off the ground and demonstrate its potential, they will need to invent something with at least twice the lift of a conventional wing.
Okay, let's get this cool thing in the wind tunnel and get it tested. Okay, I hate working on days when it's so depressing and windy and rainy.
Sections of wing are first designed and built. Then, in a series of aerodynamic tests, their lift performance is examined in the wind tunnel.
Up to our ears of snowdrifts and cold weather. Rock clear.
A steady blast of air is sucked through the tunnel over the wing section. Its lift performance is then measured on a pair of calibrated instruments at the back.
What did that give us?
Well, like they say on television, it's not working. No, 130 on the back scale. Back scale's good. Oh, 265 pounds.
Well, we had more with just the top two sections the
That's
other day.
right. The two parasites were doing better. So that means the bottom wing is interfering with the top two. So that means we're probably going to have to build a new airfoil for the bottom, which should be more laminar. And we're probably also going to have to go with that big slot before it's going to work.
The big slot plus a laminar flow wing.
Yep.
Working up to 18 hours a day on the Defender's wing, Chris Ball gives up his apartment in town and builds himself a room on the side of Diemert's hangar.
I collect and study high-precision machinery. I'm very fascinated by it. To me, this is an object of art. And it's even more fascinating when you can actually get it running and you can see all this equipment functioning, doing exactly what it did in the airplanes they came out of.
In spite of the workload, Chris still makes time for his own projects.
This is my home built. Call it the Wedge. It's something different. It's designed to be different. It's an exercise in styling. The doors, they open like this, and in a hot day, they're made to be removed. That's why the air conditioning is no longer necessary. The idea is so revolutionary that the average guy, I don't think, would want one.
Chris has his own fighter concept. It too is waiting for a radical breakthrough in wing design. After testing the Defender airfoils in the wind tunnel, they are mounted on a high-speed platform and taken on a journey to the very limits of the aerodynamic envelope.
Everything holding together back there?
Everything all right back there.
Okay, 45 indicated airspeed. 50 indicated airspeed. 55. Going for 60, coming up on 60. We got 60 indicated airspeed.
Geez, Bob, ever hanging on back there?
We hanging together back there? 60 indicated airspeed. 65 indicated airspeed. 70.
Well, it's not working. Seems to be turbulence or something in between the bottom two planes. And I don't know, it's turbulating and it's just not coming through. I guess we're just going to have to sit down and do some serious thinking about this thing.
The first airfoil designs have been a disappointment. But then Diemert expects to learn from trial and error, as he always has. Growing up on a small farm, his mechanical skills were almost entirely self-taught. They will continue to design and test over 260 airfoils in the coming 3 years.
One of these times we're going to get something that's going to work. The trouble with building wings, you work for a day and a half or 2 days to build a wing, and the wind tunnel shoots you down in 30 seconds.
Figure this one will be it?
Who knows?
Yahoo! We got her, man.
You mean at last?
That's it, boy. No more. That's the end. We've got it. It's aced.
We got something that works. What were those tapes doing?
Exactly. Just what they were supposed to be doing. It's absolutely laminar, and we had 175 pounds on that scale, and we had 120 pounds on that scale, and that's all we need.
After 3 solid years of research and testing, the design of the Defender is now complete. The drawings have been submitted to the Ministry of Transport, and now Diemert has arrived in Winnipeg to collect the Defender's certificate of airworthiness. Diemert's relationship with the government, however, has been on a steady decline for 25 years.
What you people are trying to do is to completely destroy anybody's chance of building an experimental aeroplane in Canada.
I think it's not unreasonable the Canadian public require that you do not have armament when you test.
Well, certainly, nobody's questioning that.
We ask that you wear a parachute. Is that unreasonable?
Yes, it is. Because I pointed out to you that it's impossible to parachute out of that airplane. And yet you said you had to wear a parachute. Now, the reason you said to wear a parachute was not for my safety. That was for your safety, fellow. Because if something should happen to me, you can turn around and say, well, look, I said he had to wear a parachute. That's why the parachute in the Defender is a total waste of time, because there's no way to get out of that airplane. You know that as well as I do. You've got a propeller 3 feet behind you. There is no way to bail out of that airplane. Your only protection in that airplane, and the best protection, which I have proven, is the design of the airplane. And if you people weren't so stubborn, and that's the only word I can call it, you would look at the design and say, hey, just a minute. This guy's maybe doing something here that's very interesting. Because he walked away from an accident that would have killed anybody in any other airplane you've got in any other country in the world. But you're not interested in that.
The approval situation is further complicated by the cataclysmic fate of one of Diemert's earlier fighter designs.
And we saw the machine lift off the ground, and I was just forming the thought, well, it actually flies. And the next thing I knew, it had pitched up and was pointing vertically up in the air and fell back on itself and hit the ground almost vertically, nose first. And there was a resounding thud, and you could hear the propeller disintegrating.
It flipped over on the runway and nose down, and all the way down there, I ran down to the airplane, and I wasn't sure what I was going to see. What I did see was him crawling out from under it with blood all over his face, but at least he was alive.
I caused the accident. There was nothing wrong with the airplane. I caused the accident because I was searching out the limits of the longitudinal stability on the airplane, and I exceeded the limits. I didn't do it intentionally. I'm not that stupid.
But before I was going to go fly that airplane, I wanted to know what it was going to do. Now, it was I that caused the accident, not the airplane. Mind you, the airplane does have a very narrow stability feature. All canards do. That was understood beforehand. And the airplane proved to be completely unacceptable.
Diemert is declined the certificate of airworthiness.
When I get ready with the Defender, they're either going to have to come across with a license for the airplane or they're going to have to lock me up. And they're going to have an awful hard time to lock me up.
For now, the certificate is the least of Bob Diemert's problems. His aircraft restoration business has been dormant during 3 long years of Defender research. He's now heavily in debt. He approaches the Canadian military for a small research grant.
They said, yes, you can do what you say you can do with the airplane, and yes, your armor is effective. We have the specs on it too. And yes, you have a capability that we don't have, but the bottom line is we don't have any money. And it's a fact, they don't have any money. They've blown it all on the F-18, and that's it. They just don't have any more.
It has been 25 years since the last time Canadian industry tried to build a fighter plane. The ill-fated Avro Arrow, like the Defender, was undermined by those desperate to spend all the money in St. Louis. Yet Diemert is determined to save the still wingless Defender and what's left of a once proud Canadian industry. He will raise money by rebuilding yet another old warplane. But first, he must find sponsors with unlimited resources.
Come on over here. Here's what you're looking for, right here.
The Confederate Air Force, Harlingen, Texas.
You think he's forgotten history? I don't know, but he don't know how it came out. He's still out there seeking.
They stage an air show once a year to reenact the great aerial conflicts of World War II. The Battle of Britain, Midway, Guam, and of course the ever-popular bombing of Pearl Harbor. All the great aircraft are here. Spitfires, Corsairs, Mitchells, Mosquitoes, Heinkels, and Hellcats. 2,000 altogether. Each authentic in every detail, except for the Japanese planes. They're fake. They've had to make do with American trainers painted up in Japanese colors. The organizers know the show will never be complete without what many consider the most spectacular fighter of all time, the Mitsubishi Raisen A6 M2 Type 21, commonly known as the Japanese Zero.
A date which will live in infamy.
But I tried 3 times to take a picture as we came across here, and every time I'd lift the camera up and wonk. I never did get the picture. Not coming this way.
Feel the shock wave.
Diemert's announcement at the show creates a sensation. He claims he can provide the Confederate Air Force with an authentic Zero, the only flyable Zero in the world.
We've scoured the entire Pacific. We've looked the world over. We've went on all goose chases. It's unbelievable what we've done to try to obtain one of the truly great aircraft of the era, which is part of our collection. And when we came up with this particular aircraft, or the idea of getting Mr. Diemert to restore an aircraft like this, it was really unbelievable to a lot of us, because we had just about given up complete hopes, Brian, of ever obtaining one of these for our collection.
The money Diemert makes from this deal will clearly enable him to finish the Defender. The contract calls for the Zero to be delivered in time for next year's bombing of Pearl Harbor. It must be in perfect flying condition. As it turns out, Diemert already has a Zero at the Carman airfield. However, it is not yet in perfect flying condition. In fact, an aircraft magazine will call this one of the most difficult restoration jobs in the history of aviation.
It's no wonder, really, that people did laugh, because this stuff is absolute junk. It was shot to ribbons, sat out there for 30 years in the rain. It rotted, it corroded. They were bombed, they were strafed, they were shot up.
15 years before, Diemert had gone to the South Pacific in search of the remains of Japanese aircraft. There was rumored to be a few left on the island of Balalai, where scrub typhus and thick jungle had kept collectors away for 38 years. With the help of 6 natives, he cut his way into the jungle and found his Zero. It was sitting on what was once a runway, where it had been destroyed by enemy gunfire before it could get off the ground. Surrounding it were the graves of its ground crew and pilot. They cut the airplane to pieces and hauled it out on their backs. Working in his small shop with basic tools, they begin a restoration job considerably more difficult than building an entirely new aircraft from scratch. 90% of the wing had to be fabricated from new metal. The original Japanese magnesium had simply dissolved in the jungles of Balalai.
Let's try that again. I'm wondering if it's clearing here. Try again. Full left.
Full left.
Okay, full right.
Full right.
Give me neutral.
Here's neutral.
Try that left hand again.
Full left.
I think that snag we had is cleared now. I think it's all free. Try again. Full right.
Okay, full right.
That looks good. Okay, nice and solid. Yeah, the air's up now. Should be hard work, isn't it?
It's a lot harder going up than it was coming down. It's a good job the engine does this when we're flying.
As the job became more and more complex, Diemert began to write to the Zero designer Hiro Horikoshi for help. Horikoshi sent his assistant to Carman with the only set of blueprints left in the world. Without the drawings, the job would have been hopeless.
25.5 degrees. Let's see. It's 26.5 degrees. So we're plus or minus 1, we're right on the money. There's something wrong with the writing on this blueprint. It's written upside down. Or it's too close to the paper, I don't know which. Anyway, I can't read it.
Maybe it goes sideways.
Horikoshi then began to trace the Zero's number, 5356. It had been flown from the carrier Z Akaku by an 18-year-old pilot. It had fought at Pearl Harbor, in the Battle of Coral Sea, at Midway, and finally at Balalai, where the young pilot was killed and buried next to the remains of his warplane. Diemert's contract with the Confederate Air Force called for completion within a year. It has now taken 2.5, and the end is nowhere in sight. Progress payments from Texas have been suspended. There is barely enough money for the materials. It will be 5 long and difficult years for Diemert and his family before the Zero is completed. Yet throughout, Diemert remains optimistic.
There's malaria mosquitoes come out of there in droves so thick that when we were working, we had to have one man with a palm frond knocking the mosquitoes off the other man so that he could work. These are the gas tanks off the valve and the tail section off the Zero. You notice it's just axe work, axed right off in the jungle. And rebuilding airplanes under these conditions is very slow work. As you can see, it's all jagged edges. Next photo, please. This is typical.
He lectures for a modest fee at dozens of high schools and universities.
But this one's a little bit more interesting than the average because, as you can see here, there's a nifty little 50 caliber bullet hole in the back side of it, a nifty little Japanese repair on the other side of it. Now, it's quite possible that that bullet hole was picked up during the attack on Pearl Harbor. And if this piece could talk to you, it would tell you quite a story.
Bob's wife Elaine is equally resourceful. She sets up a beauty shop in Carman, and business is good.
No, it's still
Elaine spends much of her time fielding technical questions on her husband's airplanes.
Well, like they were talking in the coffee shop that the thing is way too heavy and it's just no way it'll get off the ground.
It's going to be a long day. Now, this airplane's, wingspan of this airplane is just about the same as the span of these doors.
Perhaps Diemert never really believed this day would come. He's overlooked a small but important detail.
Oh, Jesus Christ, we pulled it right in the barn. Oh, if you pull it right off, he does that. What? It's swinging around. That's
Getting
good.
the Zero out was basically an exercise in fifth-dimensional physics.
How's the wingtip doing out there?
The problem was that the airplane was bigger than the door.
That's all right.
And then the thing just had to be winched out and pulled by cables and supported every which way so that nothing would move in a direction where we didn't want it to, because if it did, something would have got bent and it would have given us another setback.
Tail back to you. No! Well, it's out. You know, we may laugh a little bit at what we're doing here, but the test flight in this airplane, when they test flew this airplane, you know how they hold it out the airfield? The first Zero? Behind an ox.
Is that right?
Behind a water buffalo. The most advanced, technically advanced airplane in the world, and they hauled it out to the airfield for the test flight behind a water buffalo.
Okay, I've got it now.
Good. Keep her coming a little more.
The plan is to test fly it in Carman, then fly it down to Texas. First, however, it needs a certificate of airworthiness.
Oh yeah, I think that's, can you see him down there?
Oh, yeah.
He's just on time.
That doesn't give you the right to interfere in my private life. The ministry and you people are set up here to protect the general public. You just said so. Now, off the end of my runway, there's not even a house for 7 miles. Nothing but gophers out there. Who is it you're protecting?
If it's perceived as being an infraction or an infringement on your individual freedoms, that's unfortunate. But unfortunately, that's the way the law is written. Every aircraft that flies must have a flight permit.
But it's also totally unacceptable.
Well, that may be, but that's certainly...
And that's the point that I'm fighting.
You'd have to speak to the Parliament of the country to change that.
Diemert is declined the certificate of airworthiness. The Zero had to be completely torn apart and put on a truck for the long haul to Texas. Even in pieces, the Zero's arrival in Texas stimulates some intense emotions.
We have to fight for this liberty we enjoy. We cannot let our guard down. We've got to stay up with the space program, and just like we whipped the Japs and everybody else in the world, we can't let our guard down. I hope that Zero has a little bit to do with that thinking in our future.
Not getting any gas.
Excitement builds as Diemert plans to get it flying in time for the next air show in 2 weeks. At first, the problem sounded like a few dirty spark plugs, but to Diemert's highly trained ear, it began to sound a great deal more serious. The engine's fresh oil has quickly blackened and filled with metal shavings.
That's only half of it, Tommy. I lost half of it on the floor when I took the carburetor apart. The transfer tube was plumb full of water.
The carburetor is full of water, and no one has any idea how it got there.
So it's not, if it was condensation, you don't just get condensation in the carburetor, you get it in the gas tanks. The only thing I can see is this must have been there all along, or it's picked it up somewhere along the route, but how? You can't put water in the carburetor when it's on the airplane.
It has to come out of the tank. The only other way you get water in there is put it in there.
That fuel filter, well, how would you even do that?
It's got to come from the boost pump in the line.
Okay, but if it came from the boost pump, it has to, in order to get through there, it's got to go through that low spot in the filter in the airplane. And if there's any water, it would be trapped in there. And there was no water trapped in there. Absolutely none. In fact, before any water could get to the carburetor,
there seems to be only one suitable explanation. There is someone on the base trying to sabotage what they see as an enemy airplane.
I mean, no carburetor in the world is going to work under those conditions. I don't give a damn who built it.
Under tight security and understandable paranoia, they set about rebuilding the Zero's engine yet one more time. Surrounded by the remains of American bombers, they often wondered if this wasn't simply the wrong place to try and coax an old Japanese warplane back to life. After 6 more months of work, the controversy continues over whether the airplane is safe to fly.
Well, I'll say it's airworthy, and we need to go on and fly it.
I have information on this, and you never know what the hell is truth or fancy in this outfit, but the fact is that I just think you'd be at risk and the airplane would be at risk.
Any airplane may be at risk when you fly it.
Yeah, but you want to remove every damn risk you can before you fly the thing.
We're within reason. It's in reasonably good flying condition, and I say we ought to fly it.
Well, don't forget to test off your parachute and pull your leg straps up before you leave, because it'll knock your underwear off when you open if you don't.
The Confederate Air Force's chief test pilot, Lefty Gardner, decides to fly the airplane and settle the debate once and for all.
It was an incredible sight. Just like you'd gone back in time and you were actually standing on the deck of the Japanese carriers, standing on the deck of Zyakaku on the morning of December 7th, 1941. Because of all the eyes that saw that very airplane do its thing, there I was, 40-some-odd years in the future, watching the same thing.
look at Lefty climb. Look at that thing go. Man, look at that. He's still dragging that gear, and he's going like everything.
I wonder what's wrong with the gear. Why is he
Oh, he's got a small hydraulic problem. I wonder if he knows it's down.
For an airplane that had rotted in the jungle for 40 years, the legendary Zero is powerful, nimble, and perfectly balanced. It's the kind of airplane that would seduce any fighter pilot, and Lefty Gartner is no exception.
Look out, he did it! He did a roll! He did a roll! First roll on test flight. Only Lefty would do that for a roll on test flight. Oh, look at this. Well, who says it won't fly?
Sleep in it all night.
With the success of the Zero, Diemert arranges to have the runway prepared for the first flight of the Defender.
Today, a young fellow named Bright took off at the speed of light. He traveled all day in a relative way and came back last Thursday night.
News of the flight spreads quickly around Carman and is greeted with guarded enthusiasm.
Most of the talk around the bar is that that thing is never going to fly. It's probably going to crash again or something.
No, I don't think so.
It's oddly shaped, like most airplanes have 2 wings and a tail, and that's how you do it. And it's, I don't know, the design is just so different, and it's hard to believe that it can fly the way it's shaped.
I don't know. I don't think it's gonna fly because it looks like it's too heavy. Like, its wings are, the body looks too heavy, and the wings are sort of short.
This car will serve as chase 1. I'll have the fire bottle here in case we need it, and I'll be tracking right alongside the aircraft so that if anything does go wrong, I'll be there to get the aircraft open, get Bob out, put out a fire if there is one, and hopefully I'm just wasting my time, but the idea is that I gotta be there, and this car is the ideal answer for that. So this is what we use. We're not like Nassau, we don't have a T-38. Switch on, clear.
I got to get it up to the point where it's up to takeoff speed, and I can tell what the balance of the airplane is doing.
But where's he going to work when you're not around anymore?
Well, hey, I'm in the safest airplane in the world. I proved that.
Oh, don't forget, you owe me $5 for dog food from yesterday.
Well, I'll be around to pay it.
Let's not have any more of that blood and gore and
remember
upside
now,
down the runway this time.
If something does happen, you get out there with that fire extinguisher right on the double.
Okay, I got it in the trike.
Okay.
Okay, good luck.
Okay, very good.
They've decided the Defender will fly into history with call numbers following those of the great Avro Arrow. Diemert is keenly aware that Canada's credibility as a builder of fighter aircraft rides solely on the wings of this single Defender.
What happened, a spring break?
I think one of your wheels fell off.
So you okay?
Well, the wheels fell off.
Yeah,
No, I didn't fall off. It buckled under.
God damn it.
Here, Bob, you want to get this side? Yeah.
More of the frame.
We take that wheel pad off, probably the nose wheel will still work.
It's more the framework, I think, isn't it?
These screws out of here and see if we can get the nose wheel to work enough so that we can take it back to the barn.
We're going to need a pipe to put on here to tweak it straight.
I don't think we have to tweak it straight. I think it'll work just the way it is. We get rid of this bearing.
What do you think happened, Bob?
Well, the wind hit me. The wind.
The casting on that
I came
tail
around the
wheel
bush there. The wind shear hit the wing, kicked it over on this side, and when I got it back with the aileron, it went the other way, and then that side, I hit it too hard. See, I came back into the wind too hard, and it did this. Yeah. And the outriggers wouldn't take it.
Is this scary?
Not really. Quite gentle, really.
Yeah.
But that gear is no good. That's not. It's a good idea. It just didn't work.
They fixed the Defender overnight and tried again the next day to get it into the air.
first attempt. It showed us a lot.
You're gonna stay with this design?
No.
No?
We scrapped this design completely. What we need is a low-slung airplane with lots of horsepower that's simple that any doggone fool can fly. And that's certainly not what this
That's
thing
what you
is.
told me this was.
Oh, that's what I thought I was building. It looked good on paper, but it didn't work out.
So you want a completely new design?
Absolutely. Go back to the drawing board and start again. This thing is just not doing the job. It's just not the airplane that we want.
Well, good grief, man. We spent 5 years building this thing and fiddling around with it and retuning it and redesigning it.
How long have NASA been working on their space shuttle?
Here on the edge of Carman, Manitoba, Canada's only builder of fighter aircraft remains hard at work on his latest project.
What I think we're going to do for one of the modifications we're going to do in this airplane is when we load it with armor, we're going to have to move this cockpit back closer to the wings, which means we're going to get a longer nose, and we're going to put an airbag in that nose. So if you run yourself into a mountain, that you got the airbag between you and the mountain.
Not one of those airbags that inflates.
No, this will be permanently inflated, installed in the nose. Don't you think it's a good idea? You know, you're going to bounce off the mountain, and you'll roll the wings up in a ball and knock the tail off and everything else, and you're going to get one merry ride, but you will walk away from it. And it's the only airplane in the world that'll do that. You're not going to look anywhere in the world and see another bird like this one. This is a unique animal. Just like the Wright brothers, I'm sure they would like to have started with a 747 instead of what they did and worked their way down. You know, it's you have to work your way up.
Yeah, there weren't too many airplanes that could have given a pilot survivability for the accident you had.
Any other airplane would have probably killed me. I learned a lot from that machine. Even you know, in the fact that it didn't pan out the way it should have in a lot of respects, it did teach us a lot.
Well, at least we got it was some to us. I mean, we spent 6 years building it.